Hey folks, my name is Pravus and welcome to the Fertile Crescent, a new real-time strategy game set entirely in the Near East Bronze Age. This game captures the feel of something like Age of Empires 2, I think, very well, while also adding in some new innovations that keep things pretty fresh. This is developed by a Wheeled Interactive based out of Queensland, Australia, and at the time I'm playing this, there is a demo that is available on Steam. I don't know if it's going to last past the next fest, but it's there right now if you want to find a link in the description down below. I've played with it a little bit, and I'm pretty impressed, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on this game, so I wanted to show it off on the channel. Let's go ahead and start up a quick skirmish just so I can show you how this is going to work. We'll do just a simple duel map, I guess, against a hard opponent. That should be fine. And here we go. First thing we want to do, set up a village center. Over here, I guess, is going to be fine. We'll send the workers over here to go ahead and construct, and my scouts to go ahead and start exploring the map, find out what is around me, figure out where my opponent is going to be. Alright, so the way that this game is going to work, you have a few different resources you are going to need to worry about. One is going to be food, obviously. The more food you have, the more population you can support, the better your economy. You'll also need some wood, some clay, which you'll turn into bricks, and eventually some metal. Now, one thing that's interesting about this game is it actually starts spawning villagers automatically. You do not need to queue these up yourself. It will always be trying to grow your population if it is able to, which takes away one element of the micro from this game, which I think can be pretty good. The more food production and surplus you have, the faster your population is going to grow. So this is kind of interesting, but it is something you'll have to be paying attention to for pretty much as long as you play this game. Oh, we've also got some settlements down over here. Okay. If I were to take a worker and build up an outpost next to it, we could boost up our population growth by 10%. Might be worth doing that, but let's just go ahead and focus on getting some additional lumber right now. We also are able to start generating some research, so if I click on this, we'll see that there are some different technologies that will gradually become available as we earn some research points. Get 3 of them, and you can advance into an advanced civilization. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, or the Egyptians. We will come back to some of that a little bit later. Of course, we need to build out some additional housing here. We do not want to get housing capped, so we can continue building out some additional villagers like so. This is good. Other things that we'll want to be building out, that's probably going to include things like, let's say, a resource camp. We'll need to get a clay pit, which has to be placed in these deep water areas, so you can start digging out some clay. And of course, we can get things like farms, granaries, and so on. Now, one thing I like about the game right off the bat is you can actually see the number of workers on each respective resource. I think that's going to be pretty important for us. It just makes it a little bit easier to keep track of your economy so you don't have to kind of micromanage absolutely everything. Or rather, if you do, at least it's a little bit easier to pull off. Now, one other thing to notice is there's some discoloration in the ground here. This actually represents fertility in the game. That is something that is available here. We do have to worry about fertility when you're placing down some farms. Not all land is going to be created equal. So keep that in mind when you're placing down buildings. You probably want to take up the less fertile land and leave the lush areas for food. It's actually extremely important that you maintain your food supply. Right now, we're producing more than we are consuming, so we're building up a stockpile. If we ever get to a point, though, where we are not producing enough, we're going to start starving. We actually can lose the game if you do not produce enough of your food. So that is one way to actually win the game, is to intentionally attack the opponent's economy enough that they don't produce enough food and they lose. Kind of an interesting way of doing things. Let's go ahead and build out that outpost I was talking about. Just got to place it close to the settlement. I want to boost up that population growth. The faster this goes up, the better for me. I also really need to get a granary so I can start creating some food drop-off points, and also just place it close to where I might end up having a whole bunch of farms. Let's go ahead and start placing some farms now, by the way. And you can see, as I was saying, yeah, there is some fertility values and stuff over here. So try to save the lush land for farms as much as you can. And you're going to go through things like berries really, really quickly. So you're going to need to place down some farms. That does mean you need a lot of wood. Now, the very early game is mostly going to be spent just kind of waiting to get your knowledge up as high as possible so you can get those 3 techs. Getting a temple over here would actually be very useful. If I pop over here and place down an outpost, we should be able to boost up our knowledge generation by a reasonable amount. I don't know how close the outpost has to be, by the way. That's not abundantly obvious to me, but there we go. Found the other player. There they are. They've already built up an archery range, and their villagers are attacking. Villagers are not in total pushovers. They actually can defend themselves fairly well at the very beginning of the game. Let's, by the way, get double outposts boosts. So we'll get a lot of extra science and a lot of extra population growth. Anyway, they're not total pushovers. You should be aware of that. They absolutely can deal with early game armies, especially if you go for some basic militia tech like this one right here, meaning that your villagers are a lot stronger as long as they are within range of either a palace or a town center. Anyway, keep getting those houses built up. We're doing fine, surplusing way more food than I need, though we are starting to burn down through this a little bit. 28 food being consumed per second. That is a lot. We could go for one more tech. What do I want? I could go for the mining speed, woodcutting. I really need things like that farming speed. I mean, this is the thing. We could decide to rush into an early age right now, or we could just wait for something a little bit better. That 15% farming speed does end up being kind of important at some point, so I'm okay with waiting for that. Oh, good. Dangerous boars are attacking me now. Nice. So the player, by the way, over here is doing a lot of things. They're getting some watchtowers, more resource camps. Yeah, they're taking over a lot of land. That's fine, though. Let's go for the farming speed, and then who do I want to play as? The Assyrians, the Babylonians, or the Egyptians? I'm going to try playing as, let's say, the Assyrians. That seems fun. Each different race is going to come with some different special technologies to give them some sort of an edge. The Assyrians are really good at military, and I expect to go for a militaristic victory. In fact, I plan on harassing my opponent to death. Maybe I can stifle their economy completely. Maybe not. Either way, let's go over to civilian buildings. The next thing I want to build up here is a palace. I don't mind placing this, let's say, over here. Doesn't really matter too much. If I send people over here, they will be able to start working it as scholars and generate faster research. The more technology I have opposed to my opponent, the more of an advantage I'm going to have. Obviously, other things I could do, though, is start building up some military buildings, so maybe get myself a barracks and also an archery range. That would be wise. Now, the thing in this game is, whenever you're training up military units, you do kind of need to have a lot of food, otherwise it's going to become a problem very quickly, right? Your people actually consume food, your soldiers do, I mean to say. So if you don't have a very strong economy, it's difficult to support a large army, which I think is an interesting change to this game, and it's actually something it seems like the AI struggles with on occasion, because I've observed that they don't train up necessarily a lot of units because they're so focused on trying to keep their economy up and running that they don't, like, actually seem to have enough defenses, even on a higher difficulty. Do we want to go for better outposts? No, I don't really care about that too much. Trade colonies, we could get a 10% boost in all resource gathering. Less food consumption for military units, more attack damage. We could upgrade some of our units, elite archers, so on and so forth. Yeah, so normally you only have access to slingers and axemen when you first start things out. This is where having the palace is nice, because the palace means you can actually unlock new units, like the axemen or the spearmen, the swordsmen, archers, etc. You want all that stuff, so it's one of the reasons it's so important you go ahead and get yourself that palace as quick as you can. We also want to get a workshop for siege units, a furnace to get some upgrades. The AI doesn't seem to prioritize these enough. And then eventually stables once you get wheels so that you can actually get some chariots. That's 5 points. I'm going to go ahead and grab the wheel, actually. That lets my villagers carry a lot more resources and have more movement speed. That's actually a way of just boosting up the economy in general. Seems like a good idea. And I'm going to go ahead and start training up, let's say, some archers. 4 of those should be fine. And let's say 4 spearmen. Spearmen are good at resisting range attacks. And villagers typically use range attacks as well as the enemy likes to focus on slingers and stuff. So it just makes sense. Also, grab that furnace, and we need to start thinking about metal production because we're going to need that for kind of all major upgrades. So let's get villagers set up down over here, set up a quick resource keep over here, for example, for faster drop-offs. I do see this outpost, and I'd like to get rid of it. I think my scout just died. All right, fair enough. But yeah, I'm going to need this metal production, otherwise we're not going to be able to get any upgrades. And seriously, they are very, very useful. So the palace is fully occupied. That's an extra 1.5 knowledge generation, so we are gaining points relatively quickly. Again, that's boosted by having surplus food, so that's all quite nice. My people are traveling a little too far for berries. It's time to go ahead and start placing some closer farms. What else do we want here, then? We could go for more movement speed for battering rams, blah, blah, blah. Elite sappers, no. I could go for this. I think I will. Just boost up that economy a little bit more. And I am under attack over here at the metal production. Ooh, okay. That is a small problem. We need to pull back because that is a bunch of slingers. That's why we have our own units. So let's get down here and try to save them as much as we can. And what? I've lost my clay production? No problem, let's fix that. And I think my villagers are just going to have to fight for a little bit. They're probably going to die, but they can't really outrun these guys very well. And villagers really can do a fair bit of damage. They're not that bad, to be honest. Decent for early game attack, you don't need to worry too much. That's right, run away, you coward. All right, easy. Maybe we can go ahead and start harassing this outpost over here. Try to knock down some of his own science generation. That'll make my life easier. And let's go ahead and upgrade, how about my spearmen? Give them more hit points, attack damage, and range, and so on. There we go, that helps. So I could run in here and start doing some serious harassment against these guys. I think for now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and try to attack this other outpost, start curtailing some of their population growth. He's not really responding to me very much, and that seems to be the case a lot of the times to the AI, because like I said, they focus so much on economy, they don't necessarily focus on getting a lot of military units. So as long as you don't run into a swarm of villagers, you're usually fine. Now that said, I see that they are building walls to try and stop me. So we're going to have to get siege equipment at some point. which I don't mind doing. We could get ourselves some workshops. Yeah, let's figure out about battering rams. This is all very primal technology, though. We're not going to have access to things like, trebuchets and stuff. This is not Age of Empires. At the end of the day, everything is restricted just to the Bronze Age. That said, with the 3 different civilizations, each having different techs, I actually think that it kind of works, like even stuck within one time period. I find this to be pretty engaging with a fair bit of replayability. I would love to see more civilizations in the future, but I mean, at the end of the day, how many other Bronze Age civilizations are like really well known? I don't know of a whole lot more. Not gonna say they don't exist, I'm just gonna say I don't know of a lot more. Oh, he's going for metal of his own. No, we can't let you do that. By the way, let's get up over here and research things like copper helmets and maybe copper spearheads. There we go, I need better units. And we are actually under attack. He's got a handful of units of his own. He's getting javelin throwers. All right, well, we might be able to take down a couple of units, but I think we can just go ahead and pull back. That's fine. Looks like they were trying to build another outpost. No, thank you. We'll deal with that in a minute. We have 5 points. I think the next thing to do is bronze smelting. This allows me to actually get swordsmen, as well as learn about various different bronze upgrades. So bronze arrowheads, for example, would be good. And let's go ahead and get ourselves some swordsmen up and running with archers to back them up. Plus, we could get sappers or battering rams. I'm not going to worry about that right now. War chariots. Sure, let's get a few of those. And actually, I just realized my spearmen are still running around down here. Whoops, I didn't even know they were still alive. Yeah, pull back. Running low on metal pretty quickly. Metal is a very rare resource, and by rare I don't mean like it's not like hard to find. I mean that it runs out very quick. So if you want to get as much metal as you can in order to outpace your opponents, that's kind of a high priority. Fighting over metal seems to be kind of the mid-game challenge. Do need to get myself, well, let's see, we go for extra movement speed and stuff for, no, that's just sappers, I don't care about that. What would let me get faster battering rams? I think that's worth it, actually. If I'm going to have these, I want to have a little bit of extra speed. I've got a pretty decent army here, though. We can definitely go harass, especially since it looks like he's coming after me right now. So let's go and deal with him with an attack move command. And we are running out of food very rapidly over here, by the way. That's sort of the thing I'm talking about. Like, seriously, if you do not have a lot of food production, now we're starving. So you saw that little timer for a brief moment there. That is what happens when you are basically starving. You have a set amount of time to get your food production back up and running, or else you're going to lose the game. That is exactly what we are hoping to do to our opponents. But it's a good example to be looking around and say, hey, where do I have unproductive people who should be making more food and stuff, you know? So, town center, let's focus on getting a whole bunch more farms up and running. Now, one problem I do have, the attack move commands, your melee units do tend to just kind of run in and just chase people into the ends of the earth. The result being that your range units usually stick back a fair bit, but your melee units can get out of control. That's one thing I'd love to see improved a little bit with the AI in the future. Let's not forget we want to keep getting some upgrades. I don't have any wood, otherwise I'd love to. Right. And the starvation is still piling up here. This is kind of a problem. Okay. Yeah, my military population is straight up too high. I really need to get logistics, or else I'm going to get myself killed simply by virtue of the fact that I have too many units. Stop running in here, melee units. Seriously, just do something useful. Kill all of the villagers. I mean, on the plus side, they're not doing anything to produce any food right now either. So as long as I can survive long enough, we'll be all right. Let's stop training units, though, because this is part of the problem, is I'm still training guys, and I just don't have enough food to go around. There we go. Now that enough of my military units have died, we actually are fine on food. Let's just get as much value out of this as possible. So yeah, large, massive armies are difficult to pull off in this game, which I think makes some sense. Like, it should be difficult from a logistical perspective to have large armies fielded in the Bronze Age. This is where having lots of upgrades are good, because sometimes you need quality over quantity. And just like that, my food stores are crazy. All right, let's go ahead and get logistics and start retraining an army. I mean, this is with me having 26 people working on food, by the way. Just goes to show, like, how much you really, really need. I think I've also managed to steal, like, all of the metal that I care about. Let's just go for nothing but things like wood production. Boost it up. Notice that the enemy AI is set to a harder difficulty and has yet to do anything to harass me, by the way. Like, this is, again, where I'm saying I think the AI might need a little bit of work at a higher difficulty to actually do something. Otherwise, it just sort of sit around and keep focusing on the economy. Now, that might be a good idea, because for all I know, they might be working on a wonder. And wonders are a way of winning the game, and that could be a pretty substantial problem for me. Which is kind of why I want to go for another harass right now. We need to keep doing this, keep putting pressure on them. I'm good at conquests, all right? That's all I'm good at. So we need to get in there and start doing some serious damage. I've got a lot of upgrades queued up. We should have very survivable units. Let's see if I can hit them where it hurts on things like their food production. They've got a lot of farms over here. Who are these just playing as, anyway? Are they Babylonians? I think they might be Babylonians. I don't recognize everything quite yet, but it's fine. All right, get in here and start hitting them hard. Try to stay out of range of their village, because I can see that they have stronger militia right now. And now all my swordsmen are getting in. My archers are doing some serious work. This is going to start hurting. Try to take out one of these towers over here. I don't really care too much about their farms. Those are not very important yet. Take out their archery ranges so that they can't train up more units. There's the wonder. They are working on it. It's currently at level 1. I think you have to get it to 3 levels in order to win the game. Something like that. All right, well, we've killed a lot of their workers at this point. It's going to take a while for them to regenerate their population. And that's one thing that's interesting in this game as well, is they have their village center. I don't think you can build more than one of those. So you're always going to be bottlenecked by your villagers. At some point, if you let your people die, like, that's kind of the end of the game for you. Now, they may be on the verge of starvation because they don't really have much in the way of any food generation, because all their workers are dead. So they might die in the near future, or we could go and destroy this wonder, which I think shouldn't be too hard to do with my battering rams. And I think we might just win the game if we take that out. Alternatively, we could just, like, try to knock down their village center. Maybe that's actually faster. I don't know. No, I don't think it's faster. The village center takes a long time to die. It's fine, though. With the battering rams, we can knock down their wonder super duper quick. So yeah, if you're playing as, let's say, the Egyptians, it might make a lot of sense to try and find a nice corner of the map and then just turtle down hard. Walls are a pretty good way of delaying your opponent so that they can't actually do much of anything to you. So in this case, yeah, I think that they have the right idea. Turtle down and hold me back. They just didn't train up enough military units to actually do much of anything. So much better for me, I guess. Let's see if we can get some upgrades to my battering rams. I'm honestly surprised they haven't lost yet. They've got nothing. You'd think that the AI would just, like, give up. Huh. Yeah, it is a little weird. In the last couple of test games I've had with this, starving my opponent out worked out fine, but I guess when they have no population, they're not exactly consuming any food. So maybe if we hadn't killed their military but destroyed their food production, that would have been a way of killing them. I'm not too sure. Anyway, we can see here a quick little synopsis of everything that happened as far as resources produced, what was consumed, technologies. You can see my technology and equipment far surpassed them, even at a higher difficulty, which made my life a lot easier. Now, I think it's a pretty cool idea for a game. There are a couple other things to keep in mind, though. There is a campaign for the game with a bunch of different levels, which presumably will get more difficult and introduce more technology. There's also a Horde mode, which I'll jump into just to kind of see what it looks like, but basically this is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be building up your village, and then you're going to try to survive against waves of enemies. I believe it is 12 waves of enemies in total. You can actually see a little skull in the bottom, which is telling us where they're going to be coming from. So that is what we're going to have to worry about, is basically we have, was it 12 minutes-ish, 12 minutes to get yourself set up. We're going to have, 6-7 minutes-ish or so to get ourselves set up economically. And then we're going to want to have some defenses. This is where walls and watchtowers absolutely become very, very helpful. For that, you're going to want to have a fair bit of bricks. There are still settlements and stuff that we should be able to grab on this map, which could give us an advantage, though obviously the direction the hordes are coming from does change with every round. And it's not several minutes in between rounds. Once we get set up with this first wave, I think it's like every 2 or 3 minutes you keep getting hit by larger and larger waves from one of the test games that I did. So yeah, it does get a little bit more hectic. Definitely makes a lot of sense to get things like militia early in the game because your villagers are going to be your best defenders. So this is something you'll want to pick up before the first wave. Again, it's just kind of interesting because it does change up the build order of the game a little bit. I don't know, I like the idea behind Hordes mode. Whether you'll like it in practice, I mean, you'll see in just a little bit. But I like the idea behind it. It's kind of something I would like to see in more real-time strategy games. Just so you don't feel like you're fighting against the same brainless skirmish opponents, and you don't necessarily want to do multiplayer, but it is still a worthwhile single-player challenge. Now, if I can build up a watchtower, this wouldn't be a bad idea. Especially if I know the direction they're coming from, because I can have some of my villagers sit in the tower and just kind of do some damage. I'm not going to have time to get military units, I think, before the first wave hits. It could be done, maybe. I haven't really practiced the build order, but a tower will at least help me survive the first wave without too much trouble. Wave should be arriving in about 85 seconds. Now we'll grab militia. You can see that my units are stronger as long as they are within the sphere of influence of my village center. So this is good for early game defense. Maybe I can get myself a military setup real quick. Let's try to get ourselves an archery range. Maybe we can train up a couple slingers to take up this tower instead of villagers. All right, here comes the wave. Now, from my experience, it should just be a bunch of nomad slingers to start off, though they will get progressively more dangerous as time goes on. Yep, here they come, and with the extra range from the tower, we can do a bit of damage. That's a fair number of units, to be honest. All right, the villagers may have no choice but to fight. So we'll lose a few folks, but honestly, it's probably fine. There we go. One wave survived, and next they're coming from the right. What new technology would I like to get? Let's go for the... Probably go for the farming speed, and then I'm going to go play as the Babylonians this time? Sure, why not? We'll play as the Babylonians, and I want to get myself a palace so I can start getting better range units for defenses. I still want to have lots of bricks so I can try placing down a bunch of walls. And here comes the next wave, and we're just going to go ahead and deal with this, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to play an entire game of this Hordes mode, by the way, but I just want to kind of show, generally speaking, how it works. Would be worth placing down a few walls, something kind of like... Oh, hello, there we go. Something like this, you know? Anyway, we're going to survive this wave. I'm not really worried about losing exactly, but you get the idea of how that challenge works. It's a cool idea to add into a single-player game, adds in that extra replayability. I like it. Anyway, so that's a quick look at the Fertile Crescent. Again, there is a demo currently available at the time I'm recording this. If it's still available for you guys, awesome. I'll have a link in the description down below if you guys want to give it a go on your own. I think the game is pretty darn fun. I think it's got a lot of promise to it. There's some innovations with the automatic villager production, the fertility levels for your soil, etc. That's pretty awesome, not to mention the theming is great. I'd just like to see more civilizations in the future, so it feels like there's more replayability, but that is something that hopefully will get added in later on. In the meantime, be sure to hit that like button if you did enjoy this video and found it informative and helpful in some way. I'd ask you to leave a comment showing your support as well. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time.